And a lot of the people that would come into those later shifts, they would tell you why they need tutoring. Because it's like, oh, I'm working this job, that job, single mama, baby pooping all over the place, what have you. And they would tell you like, hey, this is hard. And every once in a while, it was nice to kind of squeeze out like take it easy. Go to a movie. Go get a drink. Don't, too much of something is never good.
Normal, like high energy, high flare. What's up, Omies?
I can introduce it. Oh, that's right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Omies, starring Robert Ashton. Introduce yourself.
Okay.
I meant.
Bro. Last name? I want people to find me. Can't have people finding us. I'm joking. So as you can see, this is our first interview podcast with one of my longest friends, Tony, bleeps out last name. And yeah, so we have some questions for him today. We're gonna kind of dive into who he is and how he's an Omie. Something like that.
Have you guys talked about what an Omie is?
Yes.
Yes.
I must have missed it.
Was that in the introduction?
It was in the what is Omies or
What is Omies? What is Omies? I don't know. We don't need to talk about that right now, bro.
It's a homie, but like a
Yeah.
yoga.
That's what I figured.
Omie.
Yeah.
It's an endangered species of friend.
Well, yeah, there you go. A friend that brings you peace and not frustration. A friend that brings you zen instead of like riles you up and makes your life harder.
Brings you transcendence.
I like it.
I was about to pass the mic over to him. So yeah, bear with us today. Let's get this started so we don't bore anybody. Because we have two mics and we're going back and forth and you were doing the thing. So that's going to sound weird on camera now because I just went back and forth. But anyways, Tony,
Robert.
tell us about yourself, brother.
Well, what is there to know? Well, for those of the people that don't know, Robert and I actually go back to the Stone Age. I was his neighbor.
BC, before COVID.
Before COVID, yes. We were neighbors since Grapeline Elementary, and that was 5th grade, and you were my bully. But that changed when he found out that I was moving in next door to him. Did you know this?
Yeah, can I tell you something?
Go ahead.
I hate that you referenced me as that.
No!
Did you know? Like,
No.
she does know. And I've had to literally...
But did you transcend?
Yes.
Aren't you no longer the bully?
I guess, but like, it's,
Robert really helped me come out of my shell, if that's a better way to put it. Because you broke the shell. But in a good way. Like, I haven't had too many friends like Robert where we've learned things from each other.
Yeah, that doesn't happen often.
Yeah. We always found our way back to the front porch and had front porch talks about what's been going on.
Oh, that's awesome.
It is, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty Omie of us.
You don't get that a lot. Like I said, it doesn't happen in nature. You don't get that a lot in the real world, especially having it go that far back. Like maybe it'd be more common, I guess, that I've seen in your 20s and like older, because that's when people become a little more aware.
Mm-hmm.
So you talked about our relationship, like who are you, what do you do, what, like, I don't know, give us a general background of like, I don't know, in past 5-10 years, we've been graduated for just over 10 years, so like tell us about graduation, after graduation. Like,
Sure, yeah. So
rough less than 5 minutes.
Yeah. So initially, if we're gonna go down the most basic road, I wanted to be an art teacher because I was always into art. Robert can attest to this. I designed all my tattoos. I wanted to do something with that. So I signed up to go to San Diego State University through Chafee, right? But then I started falling in love with all these science courses, so I switched to biomedical illustration, which is art for the textbooks. And once I switched my major to that, I needed to take a prereq of physiology, and I fell in love with the body. And then I asked my counselor, what's the most common major to dedicate yourself to that is physiology? What is the most common career to go for if you're going to major in physiology? And she was like, nursing. And I was like, okay, let's do it. Nursing. And I was ready, and then I had to take micro, and then after that, just went straight micro, just straight bio. So I transferred to Cal Poly, Pomona, and majored in microbiology. I did my undergraduate degree in neuroimmunology. I studied West Nile virus, and then I went on to work for the pandemic at a COVID-19 lab. Did that for a while, and now I work in
Graveyard shift.
yeah, graveyard shift. Oh, dude, don't even get me started. But it was nice because you felt like you were doing something. So after that, more recently, I started working at the Claremont colleges. I'm a research associate for a gene therapy company that looks to create specific gene sequences of therapeutics like IL-10, which is anti-inflammation, to secrete in our own microbiome. So I guess I'm a scientist.
So you're like editing genes in microbials to help them secrete anti-inflammatory.
Yeah. So the co-founders will tell me, we have a plan. This is like a gene sequence we want kind of Frankenstein together. And I'll kind of work it out over a couple days, and then I'll actually execute the experiments.
That's very cool.
Thank you. It was tough though, it was tough. Definitely needed to separate my academic value from my self-value along the way.
Why do you say that?
Well, because for me, my experience in school was a little different than most. I started to really what's the right word? Kind of correlate my self-value with my test scores, with my GPA, with my transcripts. So if I was like, dang, I got a 78 out of 100, that's probably what I'm worth. And it was really detrimental to my health. Which is why I say I needed to really learn to separate that from what makes me Tony. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
Is that better?
Better.
Like a better answer.
Oh yeah, that was good.
Okay.
Just want to go more in depth, bro.
You're like, why you say that?
I know there's more to you than just biosynthetic like job. You know what I mean?
Right.
Even more so than art. You know what I mean? I
Right.
know you, so I know there's more to it. So I was just kind of, poking another hole in the balloon, if you will.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why I emphasize, like, I separated my self-worth from what everyone in school, from what maybe like 8 out of 10 kids going to college associate themselves with. They're like, oh, my life's going nowhere because I got an 89 out of 100,
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, in some ways, like, I like that. I like that it's cut into, like, I'm not like, so it's definitely not real, and it's definitely not, I don't even think there's like any practicality to it for like the actual real world. Like, as far as, because nothing you do is like, oh, you got an A, oh, you got a B plus, you could have been a little bit better. Like, it's not necessarily like that. I mean, I'm sure you could kind of make the case for that just based off like monetary value and stuff that you're providing. But I like the fact that do this, get this outcome, and like it's so cut and dry in school, and I like that. But I totally get what you're saying, that it can definitely mess with someone's head because you can work your butt off. I still remember I had a psychology teacher, and she didn't like me too much after I made this comment because I straight up like started arguing with her in the front of the class, and she goes, I forget what the class was, but she said that when she was in college, she got a bad grade in class, and she retook it, or she didn't get a bad, I think she got a B or whatever. She retook it. I think she retook it 3 times, And at the third time, she was like, there's just no way. This is not the class that's for me. And that's just how it is. And I was like, no, that's not true. And she was like, what do you mean? And I was like, no, like, if all you did was that class, that's it. You didn't do anything else, I guarantee you'd get an A. It could. I'm not saying you're going to be, I forget what the class, let's just say it was math, or not math, let's think of another one, physics. I'm not saying you're going to be the next Einstein. Like, I'm just saying that, like, you can do better than what you got. You just, you probably went out and you probably use the excuse, oh, I need a social life. And, like, I get that. You need to take care of yourself. But, like, if you really want something, like, bad enough, you're willing to give up other things to get it. And so it's, I forgot where I was going with that.
I feel like there's different ways to execute that practice. Like, and I agree. It is important. Like, if you're gonna go to med school, bro, that's med school we're talking about. It ain't no walk in the park. So there are certain things you got to eliminate. Along the way, though, as like a normal everyday college student, you do realize, like, hey man, I can't be going out drinking too much with you guys. I hope you understand. I gotta study, which is fine. I agree with that.
Deja vu.
PTSD. No, yeah, it's true. And then come spring break, winter break, you're just like, oh yes, dude, let's go and do something. So there is like an important balance. I do agree.
I said a while earlier because I did just get an 89.34 in my physics class, and it stayed there.
That's physics. Yeah. An object stays in motion until an equal and opposite motion.
But like, not to be mean to you, but even you, like, notice that, like, I mean, you could have tried harder on the class. It just wasn't important to you. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't as important. You thought it was, and
my time was divided. I worked until 5, and then I had English, and then I had that, and I had anatomy.
That's another good point of, like, what a student is. So I used to also tutor at Chaffey College. I tutored all the bio classes. And I did usually the later shifts. And a lot of the people that would come into those later shifts, they would tell you why they need tutoring. Because it's like, oh, I'm working this job, that job, single mama, baby pooping all over the place, what have you. And they would tell you, like, hey, this is hard. And every once in a while, it was nice to kind of squeeze out like a, take it easy. Go to a movie. Go get a drink. Don't. Too much of something is never good. I'm sure you guys have heard that. Or not.
I've heard it. I guess, and I bet we both may even have a different kind of stance on this. I just feel like, and maybe it's just my brain, and fully admittedly, I will say that maybe that isn't the best way, but I just feel like a lot of the issue, I guess, with school is that a lot of times people are just right away just chasing some monetary thing, and when money is just the motive, it's really hard to get through that. There's Gary Vee, who's not necessarily, he's pretty much like anti-traditional education, but I remember seeing something where he asked a question that I kind of struggle with like the entrepreneurial side of things. He had someone ask it, like, what do? You start a business so you're able to have more time, but in reality, that's not always how it works. And so he asked Gary, like, how do you manage your time when you know that you need to be in the business, but your daughter, for my case, has her first gymnastics meet, like something like that. How do you manage your time then? And you know that you should be spending more time in the business, and like you shouldn't be out doing something else right now. Well, realistically, you have to understand that there's going to be give and takes to it, and that nothing is in the long term. And like, yeah, sometimes there's going to be phases of your life where you need to push, you need to work harder on something, and it may not align exactly with who you are, but you have to like kind of understand like the long vision of it. And if it's something that you truly believe in, and it's not just like, oh, just money related. Sometimes money can be a part of it. If it's, you try to say you have this software idea that in 10 years you plan on, never having to work again because you're going to sell the software for $1 billion or whatever, then yeah, in that 10 years, ideally, okay, fine, I'm going to work this 10 years, and then my daughter may be 10 by that point, and then okay, I can spend more time with her later on. And that may not work out for you, and that's just a rough example, but my point with that is when you're going to school for something that's just literally, oh, this is gonna give me a job, it's gonna help me work, 40, 50 hours a week, and then, and then I'll be able to live. and it's like how fulfilling is that? So I think with school and stuff, with going back to the people that you talk to, they probably are, a lot of people I feel like are in that same boat where they're going to school because that's the path to like make more income. So it's like they feel like they have to do all these things because they love their kid, and that's understandable. Everybody should love their kid,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like sometimes if you're passionate about what you're doing, like I'm not comparing a child to passion, but it shouldn't be so hard to be like, I'm sorry, child of mine, right now I need to get this done. Like I'm gonna spend less time with you because for me to feel happy about myself and for me to be able to take us to where I want to go, me and you are gonna have to, put this to a stop at the moment. Obviously, you're not gonna have that kind of talk with your baby, but I'd be hard pressed. Most people, not everybody, have help of some sorts. I mean, even Chafee has a daycare. They could take their kid to the daycare more. There's things, but they probably choose. I love my daughter, using that example again, more than I enjoy this career path that I'm going on. So it's much easier for them to not necessarily think about it and choose their daughter, which again, not saying it's a bad thing, but if you're doing something that you just love, that that like this is my thing, I love the process of it, I love the angle of it, I love everything in between, it's going to be much easier for you to be like, oh no, this isn't difficult for me to keep going. And that's kind of where, going back to where you said the whole balance thing, it's like, I think everybody has that thing, and a lot of times, unfortunately, they just don't get to find it. But it's almost like a lifelong pursuit, if you will, of finding that thing to where it gives you more energy than it takes, to where you can do it 24 hours a day, and I mean, whatever, maybe it will, say 12 hours.
Like 8-hour shifts.
Longer than that, dude, because if it gives you energy, then...
What? Oh, your job.
Something. Anything in job. If there's something that gives you energy, I think it should be everyone's priority to monetize it, because it's essentially like it's a gift. It's a gift of yours, and you don't even necessarily need to be good at it. It's not saying that like, oh, you just, whatever, if we're talking for microbiology, for example, it's not like you hopped out the womb and you were testing specimens at the age of 2, like microbiological organisms.
Sort of,
but
because the uterus does give you that. So.
My mother did have a great biome.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. I do think that you said something earlier. What did you say? Oh my God, it's escaping me for the moment. Go ahead, Sammy, if you want to say something. I'll have to remember.
I'm trying to remember what he said, because you were like...
Yes.
And I think it had to do with, like, the schooling thing.
Yes. Okay, I agree that school, and I use this in my personal statements, I use this when people ask me for, like, advice. I'm like, well, I think you just have to reframe what school means to you. Because to me, I learned, okay, so at first I was like, school is the answer. School or die. I don't know what else to do but school, like most people fall into. Whether it's parents pushing, whether it's because they're given money to go to school, whatever. And then towards the end, I'm like realizing school is not the answer. It is a tool to find the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Some people find it without school, some people do. That's fine. To me, I found it with school. And I think, in my experience with kids, like literal kids, teenagers, 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds, coming up to me saying like, when I listen to you speak, because I do career panels also, and they'll say, when you said that you went through imposter syndrome, when you said like, I'm evaluating my self-worth with what I get on my test scores, with what I get on this. It was so good to hear someone else say that because they felt like they weren't alone. So I think like in the real world, people don't want to go to school to, yes, make money, but they also want to have some sort of fulfillment. And I think for me, it went towards that route, like fulfillment versus money. There's a book I read called The Art of Not Giving a F by Mark Mason, I believe. Is it Mark Mason? But the journal version, where it's like interactive. And he said somewhere in there where it's like, in the long run, people are statistically more prone to being happier with how they make money versus the amount of money they make. So this is why I always emphasize, like, is what you're doing really what you want to do? Like you said, are you going to dedicate a majority of your life to that? Whether you're going to bring little Sophia along, whether you're going to bring this or not. Single moms were like among the most common type of people to come into tutoring. And so I would assume like I can't speak for you and how you feel. I can't say how I know how you feel. I just know like the resources that are available. And I would just say, hey, take it easy. She does need your attention. She doesn't understand, but in the long run, it is good for her. It's good for both of you. So.
Yeah, and I just want to say I don't want to come off as like a dick and like no empathy for single moms, because I mean like, yeah, dude, that's hard, especially if you don't have like a support system for that. That's extremely difficult.
Yeah.
So I mean, there is certain situations to like what I said that I'm fortunate to have the flexibility that I have. I just want to say that before I get attacked by somebody for what I said. Like, yeah, I totally get it, but I guess what I was trying to make more clear is that if there's something that you're going after doesn't fill you with energy and you are feeling constantly drained, it doesn't mean jump ship and like you're doing something wrong. It's just like, okay, maybe stay on your path and get there, do your best. And this is where school's awesome, but school's fucked up. Like,
I agree. No,
the way
I agree.
that
I
they
100%
can
agree.
get people to like get stuck in this hole of debt is terrible. Like it's great for, I think you've had most of it paid for, right?
Scholarship.
Yeah, I had all of it paid for to get my associates, and like that's cool. Like it teaches you a lot. But when it traps you into like these private colleges, nursing colleges that have you spend $150,000 that you're not even necessarily making more money than you could at a regular job because you're paying off so much debt.
Yeah.
It's screwed up. So I guess it's just more, be proactive about what it is that you're doing. And if you do feel yourself like, God, I don't even really enjoy this. If it does give you more options in the future, do it. But then the goal should be, again, to get back on finding that thing that you can do no matter what, because it gives you energy and you're able to then you learn how to monetize it. And I think that's the real path to fulfillment and happiness, is combining what you love and then being able to share that with the world and make an income doing it,
I was gonna say, I think also just people's testimonies is enough to share with the world also, rather than
what do you mean by that?
So going back to like the struggle of a single mother, she may never reach that point of success to what like society deems success.
Mm-hmm.
But her journey alone is, I think, enough to, when you share with the world, enough to inspire others more than like when she actually reaches there. Yeah. I think of my mom, for example. She's been through the ringer. My grandparents, mama, shout out to single moms in general. Like a lot of times, even when I shared my testimony in like career panels or with like, how did you get through your dark days? I'll tell them like, look, excuse me, I'll tell them I was in dark waters. I, contemplated certain things, and to me, I was just at super low points, but I made it out through just through, I don't want to get too into it if we don't have time for it, but,
Dude, get into whatever you want to get into, bro.
Okay, let's do it. If we rewind the time frame back to like 2016.
BC.
DC.
BC.
You said DC.
DC comic, right?
BC before COVID. So 2016 BC before COVID, I was in pretty deep doo-doo. I was super depressed. I had contemplated several times clocking out, because I associated my self-value with my grades. I associated my self-worth with what was going on in general. My parents were splitting. We were being evicted. And then on top of that, I was involved in a pretty bad car accident. So I was just in shambles. My life was in shambles. And I remember a couple weeks after coming back from the hospital, I was in my crutches. I could barely stand. I was in the bathroom and I was brushing my teeth and I started crying. And my mom comes into the bathroom and she's like, "Why are you crying?" And I told her with like toothpaste everywhere, like, "Oh." I told her, I was like, "Mom, I know your job as a mom is to protect your children from any harm, but I just have to tell you, like, prior to this accident, prior to you and dad splitting, I wanted to take my own life because just it was just weighing down on me, and I just had to tell someone." And she laughed, she smiled, and she said, "Well, you know what? If you were really meant to die, you wouldn't have made it out of that car accident by literally the skin off your bones." And so I took that as like a new look on life. And even though I hadn't achieved anything, even though I hadn't achieved a business, I wasn't like a millionaire, I didn't graduate, I was still at Chafee. That alone, that story alone has like inspired my friends. You guys know who you are, to like, wow, I kind of have, not that they don't have anything to complain about, more so to speak, on like, they're like, wow, that is really inspiring. Like, we're human. That makes me want to like do better, or it's inspiring. I don't know. It's just inspiring. I
Your
guess.
pain is your path.
Your pain is your path. Yeah, no pain, no gain. So, like that's what I meant, going back to like sometimes people's journeys without even reaching the top of the mountain is enough to say like, hey, look what you did, look what you've done. That to me is a successful, energyful life.
Going through the hard times, overcoming them. Is that
Yeah,
what you're saying?
yeah. Because going through the hard times, you learn a lot. It weaves out a lot of things in your life. It really shows you who are your friends, who really cares. It shows you what's really yours, what you do have control over. And I remember like we were in a rough patch, and I remember it being in the hospital bed. You text me and you're like, "Dude, I know we haven't really been like, tight, but da da da." So it really does have things like that. Really do have chances. Really do give chances to plant new seeds. That's when the soil's the richest.
I saw something recently, and I can't speak on it verbatim, but it was something along the lines of like learning, and it wasn't just necessarily around just like the like painful, but it was like the best times for learning. This is another caveat, I guess, to school is in those extreme emotions. So the best times to learn isn't just when you're like, okay, the do blah blah, got it.
Mhm.
Like it's when there's something extreme going on that your brain is like picking everything up to like,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, like, why do I feel so extreme right now?
Fight or flight.
So I think that is what it is for what you're alluding to is, yeah, it's in those times that we do.
When you choose to do something. When you choose to do something, especially in the times where you feel like you don't even have the strength to do something, let alone you start to, I feel like all the little things it just compounds, and your strength gets bigger and bigger, and you realize that you're capable of way more than you thought, especially when you have the bottom to compare to. And then it's very self-empowering. You had it within yourself to do that. And unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, I guess, I don't know, ironically is how you can say it, because there are people who will go through their whole lives just living a decent life, not having anything actually harm them. And I compare that to, let's say I decided to change paths and I become very successful, but I didn't actually have to work. Things just clicked. I don't think my success is going to have that much depth.
Wait,
Unless I failed somewhere.
good, right? Good. Yeah, I do have to agree with you guys. I remember when, excuse me, when the pandemic struck, that last semester before the pandemic struck, I got another scholarship at Cal Poly Pomona. But the award ceremony was on Zoom, right? And it would be the professors introducing the awardees, right? Is that awardees?
I think so.
Whoever gets the award, and say, oh, you know, this is Tabitha. She's my student. She's a good student. She got like good grades and da 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 da. And then, you know, they just go down the list. Oh, this is Sammy. You know, she's my student. She was been in my department for whatever X years. This is Robert. Whatever. Blah 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 blah. And then there was another student who got an award for some other department, and the teacher was saying like, you know, this is, I forgot his name. I forgot his name, but he won a physics scholarship. And she was like, not only was he a good student, but like I read his personal statement on why he deserved the award. And she was like, he had difficult times as a student. And so on top of those difficult times, he got through those, and he also still got through being a student. And I was like, huh, out of every student, I just like, oh, she was a good student, she was a good student, she was a good student. This person seemed just more human, more relatable, you know, without discrediting the achievements of the other nominees. Just the fact that that professor recognized, oh, you know, this is Andrew, and he, you know, was dealing with stuff at home. He was this and that, and he made it to class. I was like, okay, that's cool. Like, that's more, there's value, there's weight to that story now. And I couldn't help but resonate with Andrew, my fellow.
Get it, Andrew.
Get it, Andrew, wherever you are. But yeah, I agree. Good points.
So, I guess I have a question for you.
I'll do you.
See these questions is funny. Like, these questions are just weird, I guess, because they're just kind of knocking off the flow.
No.
So well, I guess that's it for today. Yeah.
Part 2 coming soon.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for coming on, Tony.
Thank you. That was, I feel like this whole, I didn't say much, but like just going back and forth between you two was a lot of nourishment for my own mind. And
There'll
like,
be more.
how I feel like I got through a lot of shit, and yet I'm listening to both of you and I'm like, oh, I'm still going.
We're all still going through shit.
We're all going through shit, and right now we're going through the shit of not having a studio for the podcast. So you guys have a great day, and yeah, take care. Bye-bye.